Welcome to the new year and the new year of Hanratty's Huddle. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Dave Torromeo here with your host, Terry Hanratty. Terry, Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you, Dave, and to all the people listening out there.
Yes, Happy New Year, everybody. We hope it's a great one for you. And let's just jump right in because there's a lot to talk about. Terry, the bowls. Interesting. What's your take on the bowl season?
Well, someone's out there cheering. I'm 65. Because the top 64 teams got to play in bowl games, and I think that's a little excessive. And I know the reasoning for it because there's no coach alive out there that's going to fight to cut back on the bowls.
Right. Because
what it really does to them, none of these teams, unless you're going to the top bowls, we'll say the top 5 or 6 bowls, are you going to make any kind of money? Because the rest of them you just break even. But what you're getting is 2 to 3 weeks extra practice with the team you're going to put on the field next week. So that's what the coach wants to see. He wants to see his new players under fire and practice without the kids that are graduating. They're off the field. Now I have a new starting offense, new starting defense. Let's see how they're going to do.
Right. So you're right. So 32 bowl games, and obviously there are a lot of kids who are opting out because they feel like they're going to get drafted in the NFL. They don't want to get hurt, or for one reason or another. And I guess that's their right. Obviously, they were recruited to play football. But okay, but you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is there are other kids who are recruited who have been practicing all year, and now it's their turn to get into a game.
I have no problem with a kid who sits out a game unless it's for the championship series.
Oh, yeah, okay.
If you're the top 4 teams, you better be in there playing. I don't care what your status is, whether you want to go to pros or whether you want to do any such thing.
Yeah, I got you.
But you have to, from then on, what you're sort of hoping if you're a coach, that you have players, that are going to leave and going to step aside because you want to see the new kids be able to start a game and play a game. And you have 2 to 3 weeks extra practice, so you get a lot of reps for these kids.
Yeah.
And it really behooves these schools to get into these situations.
Okay, so one of these bowl games really stood out in terms of players that didn't play, and just a bad look for the NCAA and for the bowl games, and that's the Florida State Georgia game, 63-3. Georgia just wiped the floor with them, and it probably could have been worse. Kirby Smart said after the game, "There's something wrong. We have to fix it." That's the Georgia coach. What's your take on that whole FSU situation?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's anything wrong.
Okay.
I don't agree with Kirby Smart at all on that. I think it's up to the kid to make the decision. Like I said earlier, that if they are in a championship game, then I would criticize the kid for not playing.
Okay.
But if they're just in a bowl game,
yeah,
that's not that big a deal. I mean, let other kids play, let the future play. Because once the regular season is over, unless you're in a championship playoff, your next season is starting the next day.
Right.
Where you're putting these new defense, new offense on the field. So you want to see what these kids can do. And to give them a game against a quality opponent, it behooves you. Now, Florida State, they spent too much time because they were crying and moaning down there that they didn't get into the playoffs. They were undefeated. And they have a gripe. There's a gripe. I don't think they had a good one. But you have to play the hand you're dealt with. Now all these kids decide not to play. Okay, fine. Now it's up to the coaching staff to get these kids to say, okay, listen, X amount of kids are not playing. That gives all you guys here in the locker room opportunity to really get a foothold on a position for next year. Because now, starting today, we're building to next year.
Right.
And I think the coaching staff of Florida State did a terrible job of getting these kids prepared mentally and physically. Because that game was not even physical.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to realize these backup. The difference between when you get into a major college like this, major conference, the difference between the starters and the backups is about a half a step.
Yeah. Okay.
So these kids can play. They can play again. They can compete.
Yeah.
They could lose by 20, 30 points, but you don't lose by 60.
Yeah.
So they just didn't show up, and I really put that on the coaching staff for not preparing them for it.
I hear what you're saying. It's interesting. It's an interesting take. So it's almost like if you make one of these lesser bowls, for lack of a better word, it's almost like a front end of your spring practice. We're going to use this bowl, and then because spring practice will start, in about 2 months, 3 months. And then most major most colleges will play a spring game. So this is the front end, and then we'll go through spring practice and we'll evaluate you at the spring game, and they're all in competition. And of course, what screws up a lot of this obviously is the transfer portal and just who not knowing who's going to be on your team. I guess if you're a coach, it's a very different game than when you played.
It is, and these kids have to realize that okay, I'm getting a real big opportunity because there are going to be portal kids coming in, which is different from any other year.
Yep.
But we have 25 scholarship kids that are coming in a month or so.
Right.
So I want to get a big leg up on these kids. So I should go out there and play my best. So I really open up the eyes of the coaching staff for when they start, slotting people in for spring practice.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people understand that or realize that does happen. That a kid who's a senior in high school now can actually be on a college team and like graduate early or move to college if they're eligible, obviously. And they're right into the spring football as a freshman, even before their classmates in high school have graduated, which is very interesting.
Well, when my son went to Notre Dame, he was enrolled at Notre Dame. Had to come back to New Canaan to graduate.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And that was late. I mean, that was normal. Mm-hmm. There are kids that go in January.
Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying.
And they really gear it because they don't want offensive linemen coming in early because they're going to take a year or so just to develop their bodies.
Right.
But when you got running backs, receivers, quarterbacks who might be able to step right in, that's who the kids. Notre Dame right now they took him down to the game. C.J. Carr.
Yep.
Who was a senior, should be a senior in high school, but he graduated early. He's their 5-star quarterback who's coming in next year. So he's been practicing now for the last month.
Yep. Very good. Yeah, C.J. Carr, Lloyd Carr's grandson, right? Lloyd Carr, the
former coach of Michigan. I'm sure that the Michigan people are not real happy. It was amazing because the kid, and he said, I've been a Notre Dame fan all my life. Is he 18, 19 years old?
Yeah.
But even with the grandpa coaching in Michigan, he was a Notre Dame fan.
Interesting, very interesting. So, okay, continuing on since you brought up Michigan, a very interesting game against Alabama the other day. We have a national championship game next week. Michigan survived the overtime. Washington survived a very late scare, which was very interesting. What were your thoughts on the games?
Well, Washington has been surviving all year.
Yeah.
Both games against Oregon, they pulled it out.
Yeah.
And they've been able to pull out every game. And the quarterback at Pennick, at Washington.
Yep.
I've never seen a kid throw the ball that accurate, that deep, that consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, this kid is really special. And if you look at it, he spent 4 years at Indiana, had 2 ACL surgeries, and now he transferred to Washington. Had a great year last year. Then he wins the Heisman this year, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes from here as far as the pro situation. But I was a little surprised that I thought Alabama would beat Michigan. I thought the last series in the overtime that Alabama called, I thought Tommy Rees, their offensive coordinator, did a pretty good job the whole game. Or the second half, the first half was very questionable. The second half, I think he did a real good game. But I think in the overtime, that last series was horrendous for Alabama, but Michigan prevailed.
Yeah, Michael Penix Jr. and just not that I like to correct you because you're usually right, but he was in the Heisman voting. He was one of the finalists, but the kid from LSU won the Heisman, Daniels.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. I get those senior moments now. Come on,
it's okay. So you're entitled. You're entitled. Okay, I do have a question for you. Okay, so we covered the Washington game. What did you think of Alabama, Michigan? I thought that was interesting because it was kind of low scoring if you think about it.
Yeah, I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I thought Alabama tried pretty much. Their big weapon was their quarterback. And they had to really get him on the edge, which I thought they would do in that last drive in overtime. Mm-hmm. When they just chose to run him up the middle. I mean, to 4 yards against Michigan's defense, very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So get him out on the outside where he has the run-pass option, where has some time to give us some thought and whatever. And I thought that, like I said, I thought Tommy Rees did a good job in the second half. Not the first. I thought the first half was very average. Second half, I think he did well. Overtime, I was shocked at the play selection.
You like mentioning those Notre Dame guys, right? Tommy Rees, another former Notre Dame quarterback, has done a very good job. Who did a good job at Notre Dame, I thought. So But being a non-Nick Saban fan, and I'm not speaking for Terry, this is Dave Torromeo saying I'm not a fan of Nick Saban. I have my reasons, but I'm happy to see him out. I do have a question for you, and I didn't share this with you in our pre-production meeting, but that game went to overtime, and we know that the rules in overtime now for college. Overtime in the NFL has changed over the years. What is your favorite overtime format?
I think what college has is the best one.
The best.
I don't like the pro where you're going to play a quarter and continue to play. I think put the ball in a 25. I think it ends the game a little quicker.
Yep.
And I think once you get to that stage, you talk about injuries. Once you get to that stage, when you've really played hard for 4 quarters, you're tired.
Yes.
And you're more susceptible to injury when you get into that overtime stuff.
Yeah.
So let's end it quick, and everybody has the same shot.
Right.
So it's I think it's more exciting for the fans and for the whatever. But I think that's the way to go.
And it's interesting now because as you go on into these overtimes, they change first overtime, the second overtime, and then in the third overtime, it's just 2-point conversions. I don't know if I like that so much, but I like the fact that they're almost removing the pressure off the kicker, or the kicker being the deciding factor. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't even know if you know this, but I do because I was at URI at the time, and what we had. The old Yankee Conference, which was Maine, Rhode Island, Yukon, teams like that, they had this overtime format back in the 80s, and they put the ball at the 10-yard line. So they were ahead of
10.
Yeah,
Wow.
Put it the ball at 10.
You got some big scores then.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, but it was interesting because they didn't just have the normal overtime. So
I think as long as everybody has the same shot.
Right. Yeah.
Then
The
it's
sudden
fair.
death. That's why the NFL said, all right, sudden death. Team gets the ball, wins the toss. They get down to the 40-yard line. They kick a 48-yard field goal, and the game's over. That was kind of unfair, right?
Fair. You had to win this.
You never got the ball. You never got the ball. You never got it. You have this great game, and Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes got the ball and drove their team down, to 25 yards because they probably got it at the 35, and they kick a field goal and win. That's and the other team's just like, well, that was that's a tough way to lose.
And I don't like to see the overtimes like you have in the pros always play at the middle of the field.
Okay, so
in college you got to start on the 25,
right.
So you're right now.
Yeah,
you're in field goal range, so you have to go for make sure you get touchdowns.
Okay, so we have a championship game coming up Monday night. It's from Houston for some reason, right? Reliance Stadium in Houston. And so we have an interesting game, Michigan-Washington. Who do you like?
Well, I like to tell our fans out there who are listening that I'm the absolute worst picker of games. Thank God I don't bet, or I wouldn't have a dime to my name. But I do. I was wrong on both games. I had Alabama and I had Texas.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Okay, wrong again. People call me up and say thank you.
All right, hey guys, this is not a betting. We're not.
We're not telling everybody to run out there and call their local bookie or all these online stuff.
All right.
But I really, I don't think you can bet against Washington anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, they've come from behind so many times. Can they do it again? They have a great defense. They have a great offensive line. And this kid, the quarterback, is so accurate.
Yes, he is.
Especially on the deep ball. I mean, I've said it earlier that I haven't seen a quarterback that accurate on a deep ball in an awful long time.
He is very accurate. He throws a very nice, tight spiral. I personally, left-handed quarterbacks are hard for me. That's just weird. It's a weird thing to say, but
that's you.
That's just me. What's your thought about the Michigan quarterback?
He's interesting
because he's getting a lot of interest now from pros, and it's JJ McCarthy is his name.
Yeah, it was. I don't think he has a great arm, but he's a winner. He's bigger than you think. He's a lot faster than you think. He's one of the fastest guys on the team.
Okay.
I mean, this guy can really, he's got the legs.
Yep.
And he has great protection. So that's where you got to be a little leery with people who have the great protection. Maybe it's the protection and the stuff, and they have a good running game. So they're really well balanced. So it's more difficult to dissect how good a quarterback is when you have such great balance like that. But he does the right stuff.
Yep. Well, we just heard the Purdue fans chiming in with their train horn, but that's another story for another day. Okay. Well, we went to the NFL for a second. Let's go back there now. Last weekend of the season, a lot of things are already settled. This is almost like an exhibition week for a lot of teams, right? I mean, it's just not. This is a tough week for the NFL because if everything is. There's a couple of spots open, but other than that,
I think the real hardcore. I think you can take a little breather now.
Yep.
Because most of the playoffs are sort of much in line. I know my Steelers are they need a win and they need a little help.
Yes, they do.
So they do have a pretty decent shot because now just come out. Baltimore's not going to play their quarterback. Their tight end is injured for the year. So they're resting a lot of people for the playoffs.
Right.
So, but it's going to be. I'm anxious to see because Mason Rudolph, who has really been shunned by the Steelers for the last ever since the quarterback got hurt. They put in
Panic. I'm sorry. Pickett. Which one?
No, well, Kenny Pickett got hurt.
Yep.
Then
who's the other guy? Oh, Trubisky. You think of
Trubisky? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Sydney Senior Mooners
Well,
flying by here.
We're both having them. That's okay.
But I always wanted to, give Rudolph. I loved Rudolph when he was at Oklahoma State.
Okay.
And when he was drafted by the Steelers, he got a real bad rap from Ben Roethlisberger, who basically said we wasted a draft pick because we don't need a backup quarterback.
Gotcha.
And we should have gone other positions. And he was at one point he was voted the most disliked person in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And here this kid wasn't even playing. That's the shocker. And just what Ben put on him. And now he's playing and he's doing very well. Now let's see what he does. He has 2 games under his belt and he's done very well. So let's see what he does this week.
Yeah, well, let's see what he does. But you're right. I think that was unfair of Ben, to do that to the kid. But, it's interesting now because he has won a couple games. And there's some news also out about Kenny Pickett and his reaction to this. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it came out and said that he was not going to back up Rudolph for the Seattle game. Of course, now they're doing a little backtracking. But usually when there's smoke, there's always a little fire there.
Always a little.
So I think he may have had a little attitude problem, and maybe we need a little attitude adjustment because he doesn't have a position that is solidified for the next 10 years in Pittsburgh. So I think he's got to play it out here. He's coming back from an injury. You don't want to rush back too quickly, and let's go on from here. But Rudolph deserves a start. There's no doubt.
Oh, there's no doubt. I agree.
Had 2 great games. Let him keep going.
Good. Okay. Well, I just want to clear one thing up. We're not going to get into the Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Kimmel rift, but neither you or I were on that list apparently. So I guess we're good, right?
Is that what the?
Rodgers said something about Kimmel because he hates Kimmel. They hate each other, being on the list, and Kimmel came back with he's going to sue him. It all happened on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN. So it's actually very interesting because ESPN is not happy and. That's the mothership. We know you don't take off the ESPN warlords there.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
So it's developing.
It's developing. Yep. The whole thing is it's a lot of silliness in our world, folks. But anyway, it is what it is. We're excited about the podcast for 2024. We're excited about the end of both college football and the NFL playoffs coming up, and we'll be back next week to follow up on that and to talk about the playoffs.
We shall do that.
Or as Jim Morris said, playoffs.
Playoffs.
You want to talk about playoffs? All right, Terry, this is the Hanratty Huddle with Terry Hanratty. See you next time.
Okay, David.